Hey guys, how's it going? MrPantaloons 1 here, and today I'm gonna offer you a character stats guide. So let's get right into it. Right off the bat here we got the attributes. So we got the strength attribute. It determines the chance to hit with strength based weapon, improves man at arms skills, how much you can carry, increase the weight of items you can move, and how far you can throw them. Also got the weight modifier there, so pretty straightforward. Next up we got dexterity, which determines your chance to hit with dexterity weapons, improves expert marksman and scoundrel skills, and influences your defense rating. Now, it is important to know which type of weapon you are using. So for instance, Roderick here is using a strength weapon. Because you can see down there under durability, it requires strength 8. So it's crucial to use a strength based weapon if your character's main stat is strength. Next up we got intelligence, which improves elemental and witchcraft spells, which pretty much means all the magical spells in the game. So air, fire, water, earth and witchcraft, those are all the magical types in the game. Then we got constitution, it determines how much vitality you have and your max number of action points. So this actually scales through further levels, so it is useful to have high constitution if you are high level, of course. And the max number of action points, what that means is, say if I have a character with a lot of constitution, I can preserve the points and then I can unleash a lot of abilities during one turn because of having high constitution. Next up we got speed. It affects the movement speed, initiative, and how many action points you can use in combat. Movement speed is pretty self-explanatory. Initiative means how early you can act during combat. And the action points, speed affects the starting action points as well as the number of action points you gain per turn. So that's pretty important. Perception affects your critical chance, initiative, starting action points in combat, ability to detect traps, and accuracy when shooting over long distances. So this is a more of an optional attribute which gives a little bit of everything, but as you can see it is more useful for a ranged character. Then we have here sight, determines how far you can see and how quickly you can spot enemies. Pretty basic. Hearing determines the range at which enemies appear around you on the minimap. Movement, we have here the movement breakdown, so we get some penalty from wearing heavy armor, and we get the modifiers from speed and from armor specialist. Okay, so it is the distance you can run with one action point. So with one action point I can walk 1.4 meters. Then we got initiative, affects your position when the turn order of combat is calculated. So just as I've explained you, it means how early you can act during combat. And we got all the modifiers: speed, perception, leadership, and bold, which is a trait, which I'm gonna be explaining later. Then we got the experience required for next level. We got our damage here, all the modifiers, gear, two-handed from leadership, from bully, armor rating. Now this is interesting, how much damage your armor absorbs, but it specifically tells us non-magical. So whenever you're gonna get hit by physical damage, you're gonna say get hit 10 damage, and in brackets you're gonna tell you absorbed 20 or something. That's due to the armor rating your character has. Next up we got blocking, your chance of blocking melee and range hits. Now this is mostly gained from shields, but I'm not using any character with shields, so my blocking is 0. And we got critical chance, chance of striking a critical hit, of course. Offense rating, which is basically the hit chance. So we got the strength modifier, because we are using man at arms. No, because we are using a strength based weapon. So because we are using a strength based weapon, the chance to hit is derived from strength. It determines the chance to hit with strength based weapon. Okay, defense rating, This is the evade ability, so how much you can evade, your chance to evade attacks. Next up we got vitality, and we got the modifiers here, so from Constitution 333. Now we got a minus 25% boost there in red because I am playing on hard difficulty. And then we got the action points. We can see our maximum action points modified by Constitution, our starting action points modified by speed and perception, and the action points gained per turn modified by speed. Then we have our resistances over here and the breakdown from each of them. So fire, water, earth, air, tenebrium and poison. Tenebrium is pretty much witchcraft, and poison, well, poison is poison. And we got our gear over here, so I don't really need to go into this here. You can wear up to 2 rings, an amulet, whatnot. But next up we got abilities, and let's see, we can choose from up to 4 weapons. Now obviously I recommend picking just one, and for magic users none of them, of course, because they are using staffs. So for Roderick here I'm using two-handed, and per level he gains a 10% damage boost. Now the way you improve these abilities is by spending these ability points. Right now I have 2, for example. Say I want to improve single-handed, my single-handed is 0, that means I need to spend 1 ability point to increase it to 1. However, if I would want to improve, let's say, bodybuilding to level 2, I would have to spend 2 ability points, and so on. For 3 in two-handed I would have to spend 3 ability points. So each of them gives 10% damage. Then we got our defense abilities over here. Armor Specialist, which improves your armor rating by 5% per point and decreases heavy armor movement penalty by 20% per point. Now this is useful to have at least 1 or 2 points, not so much because of the armor rating, because it scales pretty poorly at the beginning of the game, but more for the movement penalty decrease, which will increase your mobility. We can also take a look here and we will see modified from Armor Specialist plus 10%. So that is like, if we add it all up, 31 plus 9, 40, and my armor rating is 43. So I have 3 armor just from Armor Specialist. So that's not very useful in terms of armor rating, but the movement speed helps. Next up we got bodybuilding, which is pretty much saving throws against physical statuses, and willpower is saving throws against magical and mental spells. Both of them are really useful to have at least 1 or 2 points. And we have all the effects listed over here. So some really dangerous effects such as knockdown, or let's see which one else, burning, bleeding. Those aren't very powerful. Blinded is pretty nasty. Basically the spells, the statuses that hinders your character from doing anything, so it pretty much locks down your character and you can't use him anymore during a few turns. Also the magical spells, for example frozen, stunned, petrified, these are all really nasty statuses to have, so you want to avoid that as much as possible, and this can help really well. Oh, we also didn't read reputation, right? So reputation gives a bonus to how people react to you. So it's pretty simple. Then we got shield specialist, increases chance of blocking when using shields. So this may be useful for a cleric, for example. And let's say, yeah, I'd recommend 1 or 2 points in this if you are using a shield. So 2 points would mean a 10% boost to shields. And if you have a pretty decent shield, you can probably get like 20 to 30% block chance. So that is pretty useful at this level. Next up we got skills. So Aero Surge is pretty much air spells, Expert Marksman, Geomancer are earth spells, Hydrosophist water spells, Man-at-Arms are the melee abilities, Pyrokinetic fire spells, Scoundrel the more roguish abilities, and Witchcraft which is pretty much debuffs, buffs, damage over time effects, and all those shenanigans. Now with this guy we got Man-at-Arms, but we can get any of these skill points. So for instance, Scarlet here, she's a wizard and she has earth spells, fire spells, and also witchcraft. Now every single point in these skills only determine how many spells of that type you can have. So Pyrokinetic, being at level 2, allows me to learn, or allows Scarlet to learn, 5 Pyrokinetic spells. It starts at 3 at level 1, then 5 level 2, 7 for level 3, and so on. Now there is a really important thing to know here, and something that I can recommend. If we go back to the stats, Intelligence improves elemental and witchcraft spells. So every single magic spell in the game is modified by your intelligence attribute. So Aerosurge, Geomancer, Hydrosophist, Pyrokinetic and Witchcraft are all modified by intelligence. So I recommend, if you want to try creating a hybrid character, to only pick those skills that get modified by the same attribute. So if I would get Marksman or Scoundrel, it would be really bad for this character, because both Marksman and Scoundrel are modified by dexterity, which means Scarlet would do really poor with those skills. So it would be pretty much a waste of skill points. So you gotta keep that in mind. And strength of course is for Man-at-Arms. So it's kind of difficult if we want to have a character with Man-at-Arms and some spells, because he's not gonna be all that proficient in any of them, or he can be proficient but just one of them, right? So I pretty much like having them specialized on just one attribute points and get the most of my abilities. And for the other spells you can just use some scrolls, like this one here, Doctor Scroll, which cures weak, blind, mute and infectious disease. So that's a thing to keep in mind. Next time we got personality skills. We got bartering, which I got 1 point on Scarlet. Now bartering is kind of useless. It doesn't really have all that many uses, because there are plenty of ways to gain gold in this game. So you won't really need to depend on this skill point here. Then we have Charisma, determines the first impression you make on other people, and your talent for charming, intimidating and reasoning. Now charming, intimidating and reasoning, those are dialogue options you can choose when you're trying to coerce someone or convince them to do something that you want them to do, or something like that. However, this is not so important, because you can just reload the game and do it again and again, and you'll eventually succeed, because you can do charming and intimidating and also reasoning even with a base of 0, so it only improves your chances to succeed, but you can succeed even with 0 points. And the first impression you make on other people might be useful in some cases, I guess, for quests and whatnot, but so far I haven't really needed it, so I would say it's pretty much useless unless you don't want to scum load every single time you charm, intimidate or reason. Then we got leadership, which is one of the best skills in the game. So at level 2 it boosts initiative, damage and chance to hit. And we can go here and we will see ally has leadership too. So we got +5 initiative, 10% chance to hit, and 10% damage. And that's for all the party members. So that's pretty huge. Now, I recommend getting at least 2 points in leadership. And then level 3, it also gives critical chance. However, it only gives 2% critical chance. So that's pretty terrible. Now at level 4, it also gives some armor rating, but I don't know how much it is, so I can't really say if it's worth going all the way over there or not. But leadership 2 is really good. Then we have Lucky Charm, which determines luck in finding extra treasure and improves your offense rating. So 1 point of Lucky Charm gives 3 offense rating. This is a little bit useful for your physical damage dealing characters, so I recommend getting at least 1 point. Sometimes you also can find some extra treasure, which is also nice. But 1 point for 3 extra hit chance is really worth it in my opinion. And next up we got craftsmanship. Blacksmithing allows you to repair your own items. Now repairing items is pretty cheap as long as they're not like magical weapons and whatnot. So you might want to spend some skills just for repairing. Then you also got improves metal enhanced weapons and armors. So for instance, you can boost your weapons and your armor by about 10%, so that's pretty useful. For instance, to sharpen a blade you need 2 in blacksmithing, so that's pretty useful in my opinion. I recommend getting 2 points in blacksmithing. For instance, my guy here Jahan has 2 in blacksmithing and he can sharpen my blades. Next up we got crafting, which isn't all that useful. However, there are a few things that could potentially be useful. So crafting, you can craft food, you can craft weapons, you can craft pretty much anything. You can craft potions. Now, for potions, this is interesting. So let's say I'm gonna need to grab some ingredients and give over to Jahan over here, because Roderick has only 1 point in crafting. Fanny Blossom and Whisperwood, we're gonna need that. So crafting is kinda useless. However, if you manage to get 2 in crafting, you can craft some pretty useful potions, such as Fanny Blossom with empty potion flask will result in a speed potion. You can craft that, and we're gonna gain speed +1 for 3 turns. So that's kind of useful. And there's also this other potion, which will require Whisperwood, and this is a really good potion. This potion gives armor +32, so that's pretty big, especially at early levels. So for instance, Jahan has only 15 armor rating. If we consume this potion for 5 turns, he will have +32 armor rating. So that's pretty big for tanks, or for surviving in general. However, these potions are pretty cheap. They're about 160 gold, so you can easily buy them from shops. So you don't really need to bother too much with crafting, but that's still an option. Next up we got Lore Master. Now Lore Master, this is really important. This is a very useful skill. So Scarlet here is my Lore Master. So it identifies enemies and allows you to identify items. The more invested, the more you can identify. So first off, you can identify items by using a identifying glass. So you're gonna need that, at least. But what is even more important than that, let's select Scarlet, and if we press Ctrl on this Legionnaire here, we can see his stats, we can see his HP. So the way this works, we need 1 point in Lore Master to know his HP, the second point to know his chance to be hit, the third point to know his damage, the fourth to know his armor rating, and the fifth to know his resistances. Now, in my opinion, the fifth one is the most important, because it is really useful to know the enemy's resistances. Now, with Scarlet here, I can do a little trick here. So every time before battle, I have this amulet here which gives me Lore Master +1. But as you can see, it is not very good for combat. I have a different one with Intelligence +1 and Initiative +1, which will perform much better in combat. So with that in mind, I equip this, then I go ahead and analyze my enemies. So for instance, we can see she is resistant to poison. So now we know her weaknesses. Any other type of magic abilities that we use against her, she will take 100% damage. So we will do top damage to her, as long as we don't use any poison. And when I'm gonna go in combat, I just go back here and re-equip my Intelligence Amulet. Okay, so that was Lore Master. Now we got Telekinesis, which determines the range and weight of items you can move telepathically. Now this I haven't encountered any type of situation that would require telekinesis, so I haven't got a single point in it. However, as you can see, I have 2 points saved up because I want to get level 3 in one of my skills over here. But at any time during the game, if I find a situation that would require telekinesis, I can easily put 1 point in here anytime. So I wouldn't recommend getting telekinesis, at least at the start of the game. Then we got Nasty Deeds. We got Lock Picking, determines what complexity of locks you can pick and how fast you can do it. Now, I haven't had any need for lock picking so far. It seems that any type of chest, any type of door, if they are locked, you can just bash through them or use spells and destroy them, and its contents will remain intact. I haven't had a single situation where an item gets broken or something like that after I break a chest. So I would say it is useless, at least at the beginning of the game. Probably later it would be useful, but I haven't seen that yet. Next up we got Pickpocketing, which is pretty much useless again, because the only reason you would want to do this is to make gold. But as I said before, there are plenty of ways to make gold in this game, so you don't need this at all. Maybe it could be useful for a quest or something, but so far I haven't had any quest that would require me to pickpocket someone. And finally we got Sneaking. Now this can be useful. Of course you can use it to, again, steal stuff, but that's not so important. What is important is that you can sneak up on enemies, and you can deal a lot of damage, especially if you have some traits that increases your damage when in sneak mode. However, I find that pretty tricky, and I don't have a rogue anyway, so for the most part I don't use this. Okay, so those are the skills. Next up we got the talents. So let's start with Roderick. For Roderick, I recommend, in my opinion, the best talents are right here, these three, all skilled up, which gives 2 extra ability points to spend, so you can easily use those 2 ability points to increase like your two-handed for 10% extra damage, which is really useful. Then you can also get Bully, which gives 50% extra damage against opponents that are slowed, crippled or knocked down. Now, knocking someone down, slowing them, crippled is gonna happen quite often in this game, so this is a really useful talent to have. And we also have Thick Skin, which gives 5 extra base armor plus man-at-arms modified by 2 per point. So in my opinion, these two, Bully and Thick Skin, are the best talents to get at character creation, and all skilled up for level 3. Now other talents are arrow recovery, so obviously for a marksman, bigger and better, this is obviously good, but it requires level 5. courageous, immune to fear if you really need that, but I haven't found the need of it so far. Elemental affinity could be good, but it's kind of tricky to pull off, especially for mages that use fire spells. I mean, you're not gonna take damage to just to get your spells to cost one less action point, but you can use that with water spells and whatnot. Escapist, flee combat, not very useful either. Far Out Man is really useful for mages. So for mages I recommend at first level to get Far Out Man, which increases the range of spells by 2 meters. So for instance, Flare here has a range of 15 meters. With Far Out Man she can cast Flare up to 17 meters range, so that's really useful. Also, Know It All is pretty good. It decreases your attitude towards, it decreases NPC's attitude towards you by 20, but it gives you 1 extra point in intelligence, and you can just have your other characters deal with NPCs if you don't want the attitude decrease. So this is really useful to have. So definitely I recommend getting Far Out Man and Know It All for the first level. What else do we got? 5-star diner, so doubles the effects of food. So you may want this if you use a lot of food. Myself, I haven't really needed to use that much food. Then we got glass cannon, doubles your recovery AP, but your total vitality is decreased by 50%. So this is a double-edged sword. I can find something useful out of this, but I haven't experimented with it yet, so I might do that later. Know It All, we've already seen that. Leech heals you when standing in blood, so very situational. Light Stepper plus 2 perception bonus for detecting traps and secrets, so you might want that on a rogue type of character or a marksman. Lone Wolf, a character with Lone Wolf can no longer have a companion but receives an 80% bonus to base vitality, 2 bonus to recovery and maximum action points, and an extra ability point on level up. So this is really good if you want to play with less characters. Say if I want to play with 2 characters instead of 4, I can just grab Lone Wolf on both Roderick and Scarlet, and I'll get a lot of bonuses on them, and I will be able to finish the game by just using 2 characters. So that's a nice option that we're given by the game here. Personally I prefer variety, so I'd rather have 4 characters instead of 2 or 3. Then we got Morning Person, when resurrected revive to full health. So I mean, if you like dying a lot, you might want this ability, this talent, but I wouldn't consider it pretty useful. My Precious, every time you hit or get hit, your gear has 50% chance of not losing durability. Again, pretty useless. Opportunist gives you the ability to perform attacks of opportunity. Now this you might think is nice, and it is nice in some cases, but most of the time, I mean, I've had like 1 or 2 instances where Roderick could have used this Opportunist talent, because once he is into the fray, he's just gonna get hit by the enemy. The enemy is not going to just ignore him and pass him by to get to my squishies. So this is kind of useless, for me at least. I might get it later on though. Then we got Pack Mule, increase the amount of weight you can carry, which is again pretty useless actually, because you can carry a lot of stuff. So Roderick with a strength of 10 can carry 210, and that's only for 1 character, and I have 4 characters, so I can carry a ton of stuff. Like, just look at this stuff I have over here. I need to sell a lot of these things too, so that's pretty useless. Then we got Pet Pal, which is really interesting, and enables you to talk to animals. So if you want to talk to dogs, to cows, to chickens and all that, you can take this and you'll be able to do that. And what animals do, they can help you with certain quests. I think they can also give you new quests. I don't know, I haven't used that yet. Picture of Health gives you 5% per man at arms, 5% vitality per man at arms. Now this is useful, but it is useful to get when your man at arms is high enough and when you've actually leveled up quite a bit, because it scales with levels really well. But if I would be to get it at this level, I have 2 man at arms, that means 10% vitality increase, I have 272 vitality, so that would give me about 30 HP. I guess that starts getting useful for me, but I already have a lot of vitality, so it's not that great still. So I might wanna wait for a couple more levels before I get that, and maybe bump my mana charms to 3 first. Then we got Politician, 2 bonus points in Charisma, but lose a point in Intelligence. This is pretty useless, unless you like role-playing and you want to win those Charisma rolls every single time. I guess you could use it on a non-intelligence based character if you really want to go for that. Then you got Scientist, bonus point in blacksmithing and in crafting, so obviously you want this for your crafter. Stench decreases everyone's attitude toward you by 25, but melee opponents will find you less attractive in combat. So this might be useful for your squishies if you want to stay out of danger. That would be useful. Walk it off reduces all status durations by 1 turn. This also affects positive statuses. Now I don't like this one because it affects positive statuses. So if I buff my characters, they will have 1 less turn of that buff just because of this talent over here. So I wouldn't recommend it unless your party is not so much based on buffing yourself. Then you might want this one, because it reduces knockdown effects, stun effects, so all those nasty effects get reduced too, so that could be really useful. Then we got Water Rush, increases your recovery and maximum action points by 2 when your health is below 30%. So this is a high risk, high reward talent. Don't really like it. However, you can use it in conjunction with Comeback Kid, which says when an opponent lands the blow that should kill you, Comeback Kid will leave you with 1 health as long as you had more than 1 left. So that's pretty risky, but as I said, you can combo it with Water Rush and you will get 2 action points, and you may be able to heal up with those action points before dying, but it's still pretty risky. Then we have Zombie, lets you heal from poison but causes damage from regular healing, so I wouldn't really recommend it. It's pretty niche ability. You got Anaconda, increased damage with crushing weapons, so if you use a lot of maces, bludgeons and whatnot, you might want that. Backstabber, allows the character to backstab with daggers and knives, so for Scoundrel. Demon, character with Demon has a chance to burn an opponent who strikes with a melee weapon, but takes a 25% penalty to water resistance. So this can be useful on your fire-based mage. Elemental Ranger inflicts bonus elemental damage depending on the surface on which your target is starting. So these are all advanced skills here. Double your attack while sneaking. This is for sneaking. Headstrong gives you 20% bonus against being frozen, stunned. This is really useful, but it is for a Scoundrel as well. Ice King, chance to chill an opponent who strikes with a melee weapon but takes 25% penalty to fire resistance. Lightning Rod makes you immune to stun. Quick Draw, reduce 1 AP from the cost of using ranged weapons. Sidestep gives you 10% extra chance to evade hits. Sidewinder removes defense penalty when flanked. Speed Creeper moves at normal speed while sneaking. Stand your ground, cannot be knocked down. Swift Footed gives you 20% movement bonus. Voluble Mage grants immunity to muted. Weather the Storm, magic resistance based on mana charms. Weatherproofs makes you immune to environmental effects. So those are all the talents available. And finally we got traits here, which are quite a lot. Now these depend on the choices you make during dialogues with certain characters or even with your own characters. So you can choose between Pragmatic and Romantic. Pragmatic increases crafting by 1, Romantic increases Lucky Charm. So obviously you're gonna want Lucky Charm for your physical dealing dudes and Pragmatic for your crafters. Altruistic, Reputation increased by 2, Egotistical, Bartering by 1, Independent, Willpower by 1, Obedient. This is interesting here, you receive a willpower only if there is a leadership inside. So for instance, Scarlet here has Obedient trait, so she gains willpower from having a leader in the party. But otherwise, if we didn't have a leader in the party, she wouldn't get that boost. Then we got spiritual, immune to fear, or materialistic lore master. So you may want this on your lore master guy, just because lore master is so important. Compassionate increases critical chance by 3%, or heartless, chance to hit bonus of 20% when backstabbing. So you might want heartless on your rogue character. Bold increases initiative by 1, or cautious increases sneak by 1. So you pretty much want bold on everyone, and maybe you could use cautious on your rogue or something. Forgiving, immune to cursed, vindictive, chance to hit bonus on attack of opportunity. So these are both are pretty useful, but I'm guessing this one might be better. Then we got righteous, leadership increased by 1, so you definitely want that on your leader. And renegade, pickpocketing, which is pretty much useless, so you probably want righteous on everyone. Then you get blunt, immune to charmed, inconsiderate, charisma increased by 1. So those are all the stats. Hopefully this video has been educational for you. Now you know how to build your characters and how to develop your abilities and whatnot, what to pay attention to. And thank you for watching. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.